Commander Antares stared in disbelief at the readouts flashing across his screen. Impossible. The Andromedan scout ship scans showed the planet below was an uninhabitable hellscape. Scorching deserts, toxic bogs, radioactive wastelands, crushing pressures deep in the ocean trenches. No complex life could possibly evolve in those conditions, let alone intelligent life. And yet the sensors blared with warnings of an enormous population of bipedal life forms clustered in settlements across the globe. The Andromedan Empire had strict protocols for discovering new inhabited worlds, but this defied all reason. Antares had to see it with his own eyes. He ordered the scout ships to descend into low orbit for a closer look. What they found, even the most brilliant Andromedan scientists could not explain. The bipedal aliens, these humans as intercepted radio transmissions called them, didn't just survive in their planet's brutal environments. They thrived. Sprawling cities glittered in the desert heat and Arctic cold. Domed settlements dotted the toxic swamps. Underwater habitats clung to the abyssal trenches. There were even orbital colonies floating in the hard vacuum of space. Antares' science officers ran the data again and again. Their conclusion, somehow, impossibly, this spindly, flat-faced species had evolved to master every deadly environment their planet could throw at them. Searing heat, bone-chilling cold, poisonous air, oceanic pressure, hard radiation, even the void of space itself. Nothing could stop these humans. Conditions that would kill a hardy Andromedan in seconds were just another playground to them. They should be extinct. No one species should have those abilities, one wide-eyed lieutenant said as he looked up from his sensor screen. By the Creator. If even half of this is true. Antares felt a rare shudder of fear. He forced it down. Fear was for prey, not Andromedans. We must learn more. I want every available sensor focused on those creatures. Record everything. The Andromedan fleet hovered in orbit, observing the impossible humans, transmitting data back to the Empire. The more they saw, the less sense it made. These beings had technology, advanced machines, sprawling cities, a globally connected civilization. Not as advanced as the Andromedans, but remarkable for such a young species. How had they progressed so far, so fast, in such unlivable conditions? As Antares watched the humans build, mine, and expand, even as hurricanes, floods, and tremors ravaged their lands, a dark thought came to him. A species like this, that could endure and thrive in such extremes, if they ever turned violent, if they ever expanded beyond their world, they could be a threat to the Empire, possibly to the whole galaxy. Perhaps it was time to stop watching and start acting. Antares called up all known data on the humans and started to form a plan. They had to understand these creatures and assess their intentions, but approaching them would be dangerous. It called for an ambassador with skill, strength, and clarity of purpose, someone who knew how to handle a first contact and how to fight if it all went wrong. Antares summoned Ryan Dixon, former war hero, now living in retirement on the Empire's capital world. Dixon had led the team that made first contact with the Gelnar and stopped that volatile race from attacking the Empire. He also had an odd fascination with alien cultures that led him to intercept and study radio messages from other worlds in his free time, including signals from Earth. Dixon was a perfect choice, but the aging hero was reluctant to leave his quiet life. Until Antares showed him the data on the humans and what their existence could mean. Dixon saw the danger at once, and the potential. If these humans could be befriended, if their powers could aid the Empire. "I'll go," he said, voice grave. "Someone has to head this off before it goes nova. I just hope I'm not too rusty after all these cycles." The scout ship landed silently in a clearing near one of the largest human cities. As the rear hatch opened, Dixon felt a blast of heat and choked on the planet's acrid, barely breathable air. He checked his rifle, his communicators, his atmospheric suit. This world would kill him in minutes if his equipment failed. Dixon hiked through miles of savagely alien jungle, battling swarms of biting insects and narrowly dodging an attack from a venomous, 10-legged reptilian beast the size of a warship. All this before he even glimpsed the settlement. But nothing could prepare him for what he found there. Dixon looked up at the kilometers-high crystalline towers, the anti-gravity vehicles soaring between them, the fusion power plants humming with the power of artificial stars. He scanned the radio bands and found thousands of signals in hundreds of languages, music and philosophy and art and ideas beyond anything he'd ever known. This was no primitive species toiling in the dust. This was something else, something unpredictable, something potentially unstoppable. Dixon knew the Empire might look like children next to these beings if they ever turned their powers outward. He had to succeed in this first contact. The future of his species, his whole galaxy, might depend on it. As Dixon walked into the shining alien city, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. One man, one moment, to turn the tide of fate for all. Dixon stood before the human leaders, awestruck by their advanced civilization, when his communicator crackled to life. Commander Antares's voice rang out, urgent and strained. "Dixon, we have a situation. Admiral Rigel's warfleet just entered Earth's orbit. He's demanding human submission or—" Antares's voice trailed off. Before Dixon could respond, the sky lit up with blinding flashes. The Andromedan fleet had opened fire, raining down energy blasts on Earth's major cities. Dixon braced for devastation, but it never came. The human leaders remained calm, their expressions unchanged. One tapped a console, bringing up a holographic display of the planet. Shimmering domes of energy enveloped each targeted city, absorbing the Andromedan assault with ease. "As you can see, Mr. Dixon, we're quite capable of defending ourselves," said one of the human leaders, his tone eerily casual given the circumstances. Suddenly, the display erupted with new activity. Swarms of sleek, angular craft poured from hidden hangars across the planet's surface, rocketing towards the Andromedan fleet. Dixon watched in disbelief as the human ships tore through Rigel's fleet seamlessly. Andromedan warships, pride of the Empire's military might, exploded into silent balls of fire against the backdrop of space. "How?" Dixon struggled to find words. "Your planet, the conditions—" A female leader stepped forward. "All by design, Mr. Dixon. We've spent generations cultivating Earth into the ultimate training ground. Every inhospitable biome, every deadly environment. It's all to forge our people into the galaxy's most formidable force." Dixon's mind reeled. Everything he thought he knew about humans had been a carefully crafted illusion. As he processed this revelation, another human spoke up. "We've known about your people and others for quite some time. We chose to remain hidden, to avoid unnecessary conflict. But now—" The leader's eyes hardened. "Admiral Rigel has forced our hand." Dixon found himself torn. His loyalty to the Andromedan Empire warred with his growing respect for humanity's ingenuity and strength. The battle raged on in orbit. Dixon's communicator buzzed with frantic reports of Andromedan losses and calls for reinforcements. Meanwhile, the human leaders debated their next move, voices rising as they considered taking the fight beyond Earth. "We could end the Andromedan threat once and for all," one argued. "Why stop there? The galaxy would be ours for the taking," another countered. Dixon realized the weight of the moment. His actions now could determine the fate of two civilizations, perhaps the entire galaxy. He had to make a choice, attempt to broker peace or throw his lot in with this terrifyingly capable human race. As he deliberated, alarms blared. More Andromedan ships were arriving. The humans' expressions grew harder, their tactical displays filling with new targets. "Mr. Dixon," one of the leaders addressed him directly, "it's time to pick a side." Dixon watched the last Andromedan warship explode in a silent burst of light. The battle was over. Humanity's forces had crushed Admiral Rigel's fleet with terrifying efficiency. His communicator buzzed. "Dixon, can you hear me?" Antares's voice crackled through, strained and urgent. "I'm here. What's your status?" "Captured. The humans have me in some underground base. You need to negotiate my release." Dixon's stomach dropped. Understood. I'll do what I can. Listen to me, Antares continued. We can't afford more bloodshed. The galaxy won't survive it. You have to end this. The call cut off abruptly. Dixon turned to face the human leaders, their faces impassive. We need to talk about Commander Antares, Dixon said. The humans led him to a conference room. Dixon sat across from them, acutely aware of the power imbalance. We're prepared to release Commander Antares, one of the leaders began. But we have a proposition. Dixon leaned forward, wary. An alliance, another human continued. We share our environmental mastery technologies. You contribute your empire's resources and reach. Together, we could bring unprecedented stability to the galaxy. Dixon's mind reeled. That's ambitious. It's the future, a third human insisted. We've proven our capabilities. Imagine what we could accomplish as allies. As the humans elaborated, Dixon found his skepticism wavering. Their passion was evident as they described overcoming Earth's challenges, pushing themselves to new limits. This isn't just about survival, one explained. It's who we are. We conquer the impossible because that's how we grow. Dixon began to see their offer in a new light. This wasn't just political maneuvering. These humans genuinely believed in the potential of cooperation. But even as he considered their proposal, his communicator chimed again. A coded message from loyalists to Admiral Rigel. The fight's not over. Rigel gathering forces. Don't trust the humans. Dixon felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Antares' freedom, a potential civil war, and an alliance that could reshape everything, all hinged on his next moves. He looked up at the human leader's mind racing. Let's talk details, he said carefully, starting with Antares. Oh. The vast expanse of space above the Andromedan homeworld erupted into chaos as the joint human-Andromedan armada clashed with Admiral Rigel's renegade forces. Ryan Dixon stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Explosions bloomed silently in the void, each one representing countless lives snuffed out in an instant. Incoming fire! An officer shouted. The ship shuddered as energy beams slammed into its shields. Dixon turned to Antares, who stood beside him, mandibles clicking with tension. We need to push through their lines, Dixon said. If we can't break their formation... His words were cut short as alarms blared throughout the ship. Consoles flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness. What's happening? Antares demanded. A human technician's fingers flew across her keyboard. Some kind of virus, she reported, her voice tight with fear. It's shutting down our systems. Weapons, shields, life support, everything. Dixon watched in horror as ship after ship in their fleet went dark, drifting helplessly in space. Rigel's forces closed in for the kill, their weapons tearing through the defenseless vessels. We need to stop that virus, Dixon said, his mind racing. He turned to Antares. I'm going to board Rigel's flagship. If I can upload our counterattack program, we might have a chance. Antares' alien features contorted in what Dixon had learned to recognize as concern. It's suicide, Dixon. We don't have a choice. Minutes later, Dixon found himself in a cramped assault shuttle, surrounded by a mix of human and Andromedan soldiers. As they approached Rigel's massive flagship, enemy fighters swarmed around them. Brace for impact, the pilot yelled. The shuttle rocked violently as it took hit after hit. Dixon gripped his seat, squeezing hard. With a bone-jarring crash, they slammed into the flagship's hull. Dixon leapt to his feet, plasma rifle in hand. Move! Move! They fought their way through the ship's corridors, the air thick with the smell of ozone and burning flesh. Dixon's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked behind a bulkhead, energy bolts sizzling past his head. After what felt like hours of brutal, close-quarters combat, they reached the ship's central computer core. Dixon plugged in the data stick containing the counterattack program, his fingers trembling as he input the activation codes. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out behind him. I'm impressed you made it this far, Dixon. Dixon spun around to find Admiral Rigel himself standing in the doorway, flanked by heavily armed guards. "It's over, Rigel," Dixon said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. Rigel smiled, a cruel twist of his lips. "I think not." What followed was a desperate struggle. Dixon and his team fought with everything they had, but Rigel's forces kept coming. As Dixon watched his comrades fall one by one, he knew he had only one option left. With a final, desperate lunge, Dixon slammed his hand down on the console, activating the program. The ship's systems went haywire, sparks flying from every console. "Oh, what have you done?" Rigel screamed. Dixon felt a moment of grim satisfaction as the deck began to buckle beneath his feet. "Ended this war," he said. The last thing Dixon saw before the world went white was the look of utter defeat on Rigel's face. When Dixon regained consciousness, he found himself in a medical bay on one of the few remaining Allied ships. The victory had come at a terrible cost. As he looked out the viewport at the debris field that had once been two mighty fleets, Dixon felt the weight of every life lost settle onto his shoulders. In the days that followed, as the dust of battle settled, Dixon watched the once promising alliance between humans and Andromedans crumble. The human leaders, their faces grim, announced their decision to withdraw from Andromedan space. "We can't risk another conflict like this," they told him. "We need to focus on our own expansion, our own security." Dixon wanted to argue, to fight for the dream of cooperation they had all believed in. But as he looked at the scarred faces of both humans and Andromedans, he saw the toll the war had taken. Trust, once broken, was not easily rebuilt. And so, Dixon found himself back on Earth, tasked with overseeing the limited exchange of technology and knowledge that remained of their grand alliance. As he sat in his office, staring out at the gleaming towers of the human capital, he couldn't help but wonder what might have been. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, yes. But at what cost? The Andromedan Empire lay in ruins, and the promise of a united galaxy seemed further away than ever. Dixon closed his eyes, the faces of those he had lost flashing through his mind. He knew the work ahead would be nearly impossible, but he owed it to them to try. To keep pushing for understanding, for cooperation, even in the face of mistrust and fear. As night fell over the city, Dixon stood at his window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Andromedans were rebuilding. Somewhere out there, the next conflict was brewing. And here he stood, one man trying to hold together the fragile threads of peace. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities. For now, all he could do was...
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.